That's it. The music from my dream.
There are whole movements I wrote imagining us meeting again and again in different lives, in different ages.
I can't explain it, but I knew when I opened that door...
A powerful déjà vu ran through my bones. I heard it in a dream. I was in a nightmarish cafe. And the waitresses, they all had the same face.
No reason to hide. I know you are Sonmi 451.
Yesterday, my life was headed in one direction. Today, it is headed in another. You ever think the universe is against you? Fear, belief, love, phenomena that determine the course of our lives. These forces begin long before we are born and continue after we perish.
Alright, so that should have been some of the trailer for Cloud Atlas, and bear with me as I try to describe this movie, as I tend to do. This is an ambitious new movie from directors Lana and Andy Wachowski and Tom Tykwer that focuses on 6 different stories taking place in 6 different times. One is set during the 1850s, one during the 1930s, one during the 1970s, one during present day, one in a futuristic neo-soul setting, and one in a very distant future, in Hawaii, I believe. And it stars an assortment of different people, including Tom Hanks, Halle Berry, Hugh Grant, Susan Sarandon, Hugo Weaving, Jim Sturgis, Ben Whishaw, and they all play multiple roles within all these different storylines, and the film focuses on a number of different themes with a uniting thing that everything is connected, as says in the tagline. And that's about as best I can do in a short summary of the movie. I'm going to say right now, I'm not. We generally try not to spoil things in these reviews, but depending on how far we go, I wouldn't be surprised if we do just do this. So I guess. If anyone
be forewarned.
Yeah, just be forewarned that there could be spoilers in this particular review of the film. So
we'll try to be good. We'll try to be good.
So if you're really concerned of seeing Cloud Atlas and you're an Audi, hold off until you see the movie and come back. I guess. See, I used Audi. See, I used our term now, Abe.
Yeah, TM.
So okay, with all of that said, I'm gonna start with Alex. Alex, what did you think of Cloud Atlas?
I'm infamously, or maybe famously, known for saying it's a massive cinematic accomplishment, as has been quoted in many TV spots. And to preface that, I was not involved in any of that. I did not choose quotes or anything. I wrote my review at Toronto after I saw it at the premiere, just out of my heart, saying what I felt immediately. And so anyway, to get back on topic, I do think it's a massive cinematic accomplishment. I called it a cinematic revelation. But basically and I saw it again last night to confirm my thoughts and feelings, but I really love this movie. I love what they set out to do, and I love that they accomplished what they set out to do, which was to take these 6 storylines that came from David Mitchell's novel to interweave everything and have everything flow together and not be linear yet still connect, and just sort of tell this sort of bigger story about our lives and, what happens when we die, or not necessarily the answer to that, but just sort of those ideas, the soul, the sort of, the quintessential line from the trailer of like fear, belief, love, phenomena that determine the course of our lives, like those sort of things. I love that it gets into that, I love that it gets into those ideas in ways that we've never really seen before, and that they were able to pull off this kind of, just sort of big, bold, ambitious, filmmaking, I don't know, just massive movie. And I know I can argue with you guys endlessly about different points, and I'm sure we'll get into them, but I'm here to defend it. This movie is amazing, and here's why, and just, I can talk about it further, so that's what I'll say at the start.
Adam G., what did you think of the movie?
This is one of my favorite films of 2012. I mean, it might just be one of the best ones of 2012, too. I'm going to wait and see what my top 10 list is going to look like once we get a little further into the schedule, but this is one of my favorites. I think again, it's one of those movies that I've been looking forward to for, a year or two, having TV tabs on it. And like Alex was saying earlier, just the idea that they were going to work together with, the Wachowskis were going to work with Tom Tykwer was really surprising and really interesting. And what's really great, too, about the fact that they're using all these different stories, it's not like you have this big aha moment, a la Crash or something, where, everything's connected in this really stupid way. I mean, things are connected very, very slightly. There's little shades here and there. If you're not paying attention, you're not going to notice it. And I really like that. One thing I really thought was interesting was, from all the trailers and whatnot, whether it's, the extended mega trailer or the little one, you get this sense that it's going to be, you're going to have this, the Tom Hanks, Halle Berry segment was going to go back to, like, the caveman time, like Bronze Age or whatever. Not Bronze Age, probably more like Stone Age. But then, the second time you get to that sequence, all of a sudden, this awesome hover boat pulls up and your total expectation, at least mine was, is blown. And you think, oh my gosh, we're in the far future. Oh, you're doing it already. And that was really exciting to see. I think the performances are good. I think it's very clearly I hesitate to use this term, but a Hollywood film. Because the Wachowskis don't really know how to do anything other than, ground everything in this very strong 3-act structure. But the way that they do it is fascinating, just because you've got all these different characters and they're moving back and forth and in a very organic way. And I haven't read the book, but from what I know of the book, I'm astounded that they were able to take that material and turn it into something that really holds together as a cohesive piece. So I'm a big fan of this movie.
Okay, Abe?
The film is incredibly ambitious, and I think that it's a good film. I don't know if it's a great film. I remember just thinking to myself that I wasn't completely super blown out of the water by it, although I did enjoy it. And I think it's one of those films, I was thinking about it on the way home, and I was thinking about it at night, and I was thinking about it this morning, so it's definitely one of those films that stays. But certainly it's one of those things where I think you would have to view it twice to get a fuller grasp of all the meanings and all the characters and everything like that. I think that its soundtrack is fantastic. I was listening to the Cloud Atlas piano play while I was walking home, and it's just pretty mesmerizing. So on the whole, it's not like crazy good in my mind, but it's pretty good.
All right, and I really enjoyed this movie as well. It's certainly, yeah, ambitious is the word to say the least about the film, but I've seen it twice now, and the second time I think helped in me kind of looking past what I consider to be kind of issues I have with the movie in terms of the overall, the look of some of it. You have some I think the production values in this movie are pretty fantastic, but there are some awkward things going on with like how the makeup's handled that it just made me kind of stop and be like, wait a minute. But looking past that, I was just really into the story structure, and that's what I think is the most impressive aspect about a film like this. I think a movie that has 6 different storylines in 6 different times that's utilizing all these different elements, I think it could easily have been a huge mess. And it's not, and that's what I admire most about the film. It works out really well. It's very smooth to watch. I wouldn't necessarily say the pacing is like lightning quick, but I never find the film boring. I'm always into what's going on, and I'm always clear on what I'm watching at the time. Like the way it flows is very effective to me, and I really admire that about the movie, as well as just the movie in general in terms of it being a high budget independent film, essentially. Like the way that they're able to kind of the fact that this movie exists is one of those things that impresses me. Like
yes, definitely.
It has like just so much going on in it. And it has like people like Tom Hanks and Halle Berry, but it also has smaller stars as well. And I was a big fan of how it all came together in such a interesting and generally really good way. I think the score is really good as well. I think the performances, especially with respect to like the leads of their respective stories, I think come off the best. I think some stories play much better than others. I do have some issues with some of the stories, which we'll probably get into. But overall, yeah, I really enjoyed this movie quite a bit, and I'm still thinking about it, which makes me look forward to considering what I'm going to think of it at the end of the year when it comes time to tally what movies I've seen and which movies still register with me.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do want to echo your sentiments about the, because I remember when we first reviewed the trailer, I thought, man, this looks like a complete mess. And I do want to say that it is not a mess, and I was really happy about that. And to your point about the editing, it does flow pretty well. I mean, I don't know if I was ever bored with it, and so that 2 hours and 40 odd minutes actually went by pretty quickly. So that's something that is a win for the movie.
Yes. No, I also wanted to mention, Aaron, you were talking about the independent nature of it. Upon repeat viewings, one thing I noticed is that I sort of picked up on how limited they were, but not in a negative way. For example, you can tell that for the most part, most of the sequences are either shot in a studio, which was, I think they worked out of Germany, or just some sort of small set piece. Like the future Neo Soul sequence takes place really in like two places. One of them, or three places. You got Papa Song, you got sort of the escape sequence from window to window, and then you have the like chase sequence, which is probably just all blue screen at that point.
Yeah.
And then you have the final battle in that big room where they're trying to break in through the doors. And I'm like, these are just 4 big studio sound stages, and there's not, like, you can feel the independent limit in that sense, and that they didn't go to, $250 million range in terms of building, sets the size of a football field. But at the same time, that's why I think it is such an achievement, is that they've been able to do that and yet make you still feel the story and sort of, as you guys said, not feel lost in the mess of 6 storylines and bringing it all together and sort of achieving the goal of telling these soul-connecting stories across the different timelines.
Yeah,
and the VFX in the Neo Soul sequence are really strong too. I mean, you don't get that sense like a Star Wars prequel type of deal where you've got a lot of blue screen and it feels really limited and artificial, and it just that you're watching something that's completely fabricated in a computer somewhere. I mean, you really get the effects are really interactive. It feels like it could be real, as opposed to just doesn't feel fake or plasticky or something like that.
It's something I like about the Wachowski Starship. That's what they branded themselves now, correct? I've always enjoyed their use of visual effects, and even in The Matrix Reloaded, which has the scene of Neo in the Burly Brawl where it looks weird. I mean, they have an interesting handle on how they play with effects. It's not that they feel real, but they never feel false. They feel like they fit the tone of the movie that they're working in. And Speed Racer, I think, is another highlight of this example. Which I love. And actually, come to think of it, I think aside from maybe their production credit on Ninja Assassin, I think I've loved everything the Wachowskis have done.
Yes.
Matrix 3 I'll kind of put lower, but I mean, besides that, I've loved everything that the Wachowskis have done. And I mean, I'm not going to short credit Tom Tykwer here either. I think the direction of this movie is fantastic between all 3 of them. The way they approach every segment, what I liked about the Tom Tykwer segments actually in particular is it feels very, very much because those the 70s one is set in America, but it feels like it's handled from a person that's not an American director. Just the way you show violence in movies directed by someone that's not American, and that for a movie that's not like a Hollywood movie, it feels very, I wouldn't say brutal, but it feels more grounded, I guess. It feels like the violence it's violent. It's R-rated because that's required of it, not because, hey, we need to go over the top with graphicness. It is very matter of fact in how it sounds. Same with some of the Wachowski stuff too. There's some brutal stuff in there, but again,
to be honest, I don't really know. I mean, I was watching the credits to a point, but I don't know which segments were directed by which people.
The first one is, and the last, first.
Yeah, that's really helpful. The first.
Yeah, I know. The ship 1800s one and the 2 future ones, Neo Soul and Hawaii, are the Wachowskis, and then the other 3 sort of 90s and then modern are Tykwer.
Nice. Okay. That's great too, because I mean, you look at those individual sequences, and you really get the sense that even though there's 3 directors, there's one vision behind this movie. You don't get the sense okay, well now I don't know where I'm at. This is totally a different, style. I mean, the styles obviously the styles aren't different. It's not that. It's that I mean, look, in the 70s sequence, you've got like a little 70s crime drama. In the present day sequence, you've got great comedy. You know, in the future, if in the sci-fi sequences, you've got some great science fiction. So I mean, they're tackling a lot of different genres, but you never get the sense that it's, you know, that you're, you know, having these jarring shifts in tone.
Yeah.
What was your one of your favorite, I guess, pieces of this Cloud Atlas? Like, what was your favorite time segment? Kind of goes back to the question you asked in the early parts.
It's a good question. I can start that one off. I really responded to the Neo Soul stuff. I was really into that structure, and I think what's her name, Duna Bai.
Yeah.
I really liked her performance. I think the most out of all these performances, and I think there are a lot of good performances. Well, we can talk about that next, I guess. But I really liked her performance in this movie. I like where her character ended up and how she developed. I mean, you have in a movie that's, you know, you have 6 short films going on and you only have so much time to develop these characters. I was really impressed with how much I was able to respond to what's her name? Like, what is it? Sona
451.
Sona 451.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of the number. And yeah, I really enjoyed her segment a lot. I really also like the final segment as well. I'll say I wasn't a huge fan of the bookends of the movie. Get these old bones in here, but but the story itself involving Tom Hanks and Halle Berry and the futuristic Hawaii thing, I enjoyed that one as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say the two that I really loved were the Hawaii sequence, like you said, and I'll get back to that. But the other one I really admired, and I didn't expect to like this, was the early 1900s sort of gay romance and then composer story, because I thought there were so many layers to it between the gay romance and then between his relationship with the composer and then where they took that and his ending, unfortunately. I mean, I guess that's kind of a spoiler, but you know, what he does and that sort of stuff. And it just was really beautifully made. And I'm a huge Ben Whishaw fan. As I mentioned earlier about Perfume, that's sort of where I first discovered him and was amazed by him. And seeing him, I mean, again, since you can tell this was a Tom Tykwer segment, is he's obviously worked with him before and was able to shape him into someone that just really worked well. That Frobisher character just stands out to me in a big way. But I was going to say the reason why I love the Hawaii sequence is that, to me, that is the culmination of the 6 timelines of Tom Hanks' character finally getting to fall in love and be with the character that he wants to love, which is Halle Berry's character. And that you see throughout the 5 previous segments, except for maybe the very first one, that he's interacts with her, and then you get in the middle you get the one where he meets her and then he dies after he meets her. Another spoiler. But then, you know, it continues on to he finally gets with her and finally makes the decisions, and, you know, it's like, it's that whole idea of the love going across 6 generations to finally reach what he was truly hoping to happen.
Yeah.
My favorite, it's funny that I have a bunch of different favorites for different reasons. I think, the most fun segment is the ghastly ordeal of Timothy Cavendish. There's a bit where they're in a car and something awesome happens. I don't want to spoil it. And it was one of those things where the music cue hit at just the right point. It's awesome. And my heart just kind of leaped. And I was like, oh, yes! Way to go, you know, senior citizens. So that was awesome. and kind of like Alex was saying, the romance between Frobisher and Sixsmith is just really effective.
Yeah.
It's really moving, and, you know, the Ben Whishaw character is just really, really strong just to see sort of his confusion about how he can relate to this world that he lives in that doesn't really have a place for him. That was really fascinating. But if I had to pick one favorite segment, it's probably the Neo Soul segment. I mean, it's just fascinating the way that is constructed in the, you know, under the auspices of having it be an interview between, you know, Sunmi and this archivist. I mean, that was fascinating, and just to see where it goes. And another thing that's really great about the movie is, you know, for example, in the far future segment, you know, Sunmi is revered as this god, and then you're having a chance to see that and how people perceive her in the future. versus, you're looking at this person right now.
Her origin
it's
story.
Exactly. It's this look at how a story can turn into something that's a lot bigger, to where all of a sudden, she's been deified, and all, this person, or, character actually is, as she's probably not technically a person. I'm not sure. You can kind of see how things get blown out of proportion and turn into something that they're not.
I wanted to see more, maybe you guys can clarify more on this, but I wanted to understand more of how she became the deity. Like what, I didn't understand, and maybe it's explained in the book, but I didn't understand how she went from being this fabricant who, at one point she talks about how her memories are the same thing every day. And she's like, I don't have any more memories because the 24-hour cycle of Papa Song is the same thing. And then she goes from that to being this person that in the future Hawaii is referenced as God. She's the replacement for it. I'm like, how did she, where did her ideas come from? How did she preach them to make a difference? And how did this make it change the world so much?
For what I can gather, I mean, because it's basically implied at that point where she went from being, in the Papa Songs. And then she's like, when Asian Jim Sturgis takes her, she's, gathering all this knowledge that she's like, we don't exactly have like a time for how long she was able to be out in the, in the free world but she's gathering all this information. You see her like flipping through all the different Minority Report screens. And then, and then she of course delivers her big message. Now we don't see all that message necessarily. We kind of see it in spurts of her talking to recording a message. And then, her last line, or one of her last lines, is like, "So someone heard it," or whatever. Like someone somewhere already has. And I guess from there, we just have to extrapolate that not only someone has, but either many people have, or someone's preaching what she's preaching, and pay it forward and what have you, and suddenly, boom, bam, she's got everybody.
That's what I mean. It just seemed like a big leap.
Yeah, it's a pretty big leap. And even then, I mean, getting to the Hawaii segment, I mean, that takes place. We don't even know when. It's a very distant future.
If there's been a nuclear holocaust or a nuclear war of some kind, I mean, I took it from the perspective that, okay, every day is the same for her because, essentially she's in the Matrix, every night she goes to sleep in this alcove, whatever. Who knows if maybe she's being plugged in to anything, whatever. So she finally gets out of this environment where everything's the same. She starts actually living her natural life. Now, from what I took it, these fabricants are human beings they're like, essentially test tube babies that are grown in a tank or whatever.
Yeah.
So she gets out of that, and then she goes off, has this great adventure, has this message and whatnot. And my thought was that after this nuclear war, his history and historical record was so fragmented that, people found fragments or whatnot, and then were willing to, and then obviously the legend just kind of grew, and she became this deity. And obviously we know there's two parts to that feature, where there's sort of the cities where some of the rich folks still live, and then there's these valleys and rural areas. But that was kind of how I took it, was just that the fragmentation of the historical record turned her into something she wasn't.
If you want to think of it one way, I mean, you have her friend who was executed. Like she gained her independence by watching a fragment of some random TV movie.
The Timothy Cavendish story,
and she used that as a catalyst to make her become independent. So someone finds a speech about not wanting to have genetically engineered clones fed to themselves, and you find that in the right setting, that could lead to some. Hey, this person seems to know what they're talking about.
The way that I thought about it was, she's in her everyday job, and then she gets removed, and then she has like a Fifth Element thing where she learns about all these things because the internet is so fast.
Everything is connected.
Everything, yeah. And then they go through the whole entire. We've got to broadcast your message because your message. You will become a martyr for this message, and through that, she was able to record, and then it just goes out. And I really found that the interrogation scene to be very profound, especially at the end when the interrogator asks his final question, and her answer is, "There's already someone that believes it." And I took that to be that the interrogator has now been implanted with this idea of, look, I did this because someone somewhere at some time is going to fully understand that this isn't correct for us to be living this way, and you will be the start of the revolution. So it's a pretty neat thing. I found that storyline to be pretty cool.
Well, that's why I almost wanted to see like a whole movie on just that, the progression from Somni to the Hawaii sequence, because that's like, it's fascinating to get into the idea of how almost religion is created in a sense, and how they could go from that point to seeing how her message spreads and how it gets to, because I love the dichotomy of that sequence and then every sequence in the Hawaii sequence, whenever, like I said, whenever they are trying to say a line that would be like, oh God, they just say, oh Somni, or something like that. And it's like, that's fascinating to see that they got to that point of her name being replaced for God, and how huge that is in terms of a progression of, I don't know, humanity in a way, I guess.
That makes me wonder about how far distant into the future they are.
It's 106 winters later.
Oh, 106 winters later? Okay, well, that's
106 after the big winter. Actually, no, I think that makes... Okay. Now I'm thinking about...
You could also make a case, too. I mean, it's possible, obviously we know there are the two different segments of society in this far future. It's possible that maybe the richer portion sort of implanted that into the rural areas just for methods of control and whatnot. So it's possible that could have happened, too.
Basically, they were incepted. That's what happened.
Well, only it's a better movie.
Yeah. One of the things
Go, Alex. Sorry.
Go ahead, Alex.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, this is almost going to change topics, but I wanted to say that one of the things I noticed and that you guys were bringing up about the bookends, and when I was watching it last night, I realized this, is that in every sequence and in every connection between the sequences, there is an establishment of how stories are told and carried over throughout generations. For example, in the first one, it's the book that Ewing writes and is read by Frobisher. Then Louisa Ray reads, I think, or no, she picks up the Cloud Atlas Sextet.
And the letters.
She reads the letters.
And the letters by
Right. And then you know, her story is turned into a book. And then Timothy Cavendish's story is turned into the movie in Neo Soul. And then at the very end, this is the bookend, is you see Tom Hanks as the old guy telling the story of his life, which is essentially the culmination of this generation of storytelling, now telling the kids, continuing that on. And it's like, to me, it showed the bigger idea of not only that there are the people who make a difference and who make changes and step out of line, but then how do those changes actually carry over and become something that actually influences generations, whether it may be 10 or hundreds of years down the line. And it obviously comes down to how we tell stories and how history is recorded throughout time and used to reference. And I love seeing that, especially upon repeat viewings, of how those connections played out through that sort of bigger idea. It's fascinating.
I think a lot of people could hate I know a lot of people probably don't like the bookends, but I mean, obviously when the story kind of begins, I could see how people could say they're a little bit hammy here and there as far as the bookends, but I think at the end of the day, the way the film actually ends, and a major spoiler, when they point up at the stars and whatnot, I mean I think that's fascinating. It's almost the only way that story could really end, as effectively this is the future of humanity. This is the fruition of, like Alex was saying, everything that we've been, watching over the past 3 hours, and I think to take it all the way back to that nature of storytelling, it's just terrific. I mean, let me tell Grandpa's going to tell you a story.
Yeah.
I agree that with the impact and the implication of what's going on at the end of the story. I really enjoy that fact. The only thing about the bookends that threw me, it's not the beginning bookend's fine. It's just a little like throws you off because Tom Hanks is using that accent. It's like, wait, what's going on? But it's more of, old Tom Hanks and old Halle Berry and just their final lines to each other that kind of threw me. That's the only issue I have with the book.
Yeah, it doesn't really end.
It doesn't end on like on something super powerful. It's something. I guess it's something personal, and you can argue that that's kind of nice and how that plays out. But it's more like Halle Berry's like, let me get these old bones.
Let me warm up your old bones.
Like that's a little like, okay.
Oh, Holly.
But yeah, no, I do like that. In fact, I want Abe to say what his favorite stories are. Let me just make a few things.
Oh yes.
Let me just say a few things that I wanted to say when you guys are talking. Ben Whishaw is my other favorite performance in this movie. I think he's absolutely fantastic as Frobisher. I think he's really, really good. And after seeing it a second time especially, it registered more with me just how kind of intimate his performance is and how well he's playing it for a character that's, not involved in something super high. Like, it's it's this little personal period drama as opposed to, being in a futuristic world with all kinds of crazy stuff going on or something to really play off. There's just a lot of really solid acting there. I would argue the same for Tom Hanks as well in the final Hawaii segment, but I think that, as Alex was saying, that benefits from having established him in other previous timelines and how that plays out. I think Ben Whishaw, he's coming from just one timeline and is able to create a character in what is essentially like a 40-minute short film, or however long, if you added up all the time, would be. Also, the Ben Whishaw character, that timeline, one of my favorite shots in that movie, in his thing, is like the beginning of that segment when he like hops out of bed and he's presumably about to hop out a window. It cuts away, and the cut back is just people looking up as if he did hop out the window without you actually having seen it. And that's the kind of thing that always just makes me happy. It's like it's a tinge of continuity that like implies something without you actually having to see it, especially something like jumping out of a window. The second time I saw it, I was like, oh, that's cool.
Well, that's what I was saying about the independent nature of it, is that they do these things where you're like, okay, that's obviously they just weren't gonna go shoot that, but then you're like, it works well.
Before I get to the storyline stuff, I do want to echo, Alex, what you had said about I guess how the nature of storytelling. That's actually a really interesting idea that you bring up. Yeah. And yeah, the idea that you have all these, I guess, stories and, maybe your dad or your mom told you bedtime stories or these like old legend superstition stuff. It's really interesting. Where does that come from? How does that, create itself? And how does it withstand the test of time? It's really amazing. And so that's just a deeper, I guess, meaning of this film and a deeper concept that you can think about. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, no, that's why I love this film, and that's why I'm defending this, because I feel like it achieves that, the fact that you can recognize that, and yet it shows you also that it does that across these 6 stories. Anyway, sorry.
Oh no, but my two favorite storylines it is the Ben Whishaw character when he's playing Robert Frobisher, and I think that one's devastating, not just because of how it ends, but in terms of his little contribution to the story is a piece of music that is, I guess, highly controversial just because of his confrontation with Jim Broadbent. And so there are only like a handful of pieces of it in the world, and that's a sad idea in terms of what he could have accomplished, but only just to have like, a handful remaining in 1973 or whatever time. And the other storyline I liked a lot was, the Timothy Cavendish, and primarily because of the way that it was, I guess, lighthearted, but also the way that it plays out toward the end, about his love story. I found that to be very endearing, and I'm glad that it ended the way that it did. I could have understood if it ended a different way as well, but it's one of those things about, lost loves, and it was a sweet moment, and that was really nice. Although I did wonder, did he ever settle the debt with the book writer and his cronies that came to ambush him in his home?
No, he ran away to secret Susan Sarandon land, so he's fine.
Oh, okay, yeah, in Vermont, I guess, yeah. But yeah, that was I really found that to be a nice one. I think the lighting actually helped out a lot with that. I don't know why. The lighting's very nice and warm in both
beautiful
stories. Yeah.
Let me say something about the Cavendish story, and I had fun with that story. I really laughed a lot with it, even though Hugo Weaving's giant forehead made the nurse very awkward to look at. But
and very broad chest.
Yes, all those things. But that one's like, I would almost put it at the bottom of the stories, just because it's not that it's not. I can see where the connections are, but it feels like the tone of that one just so off-putting compared to the rest of the films. And I guess, it's almost like having a comic relief character. You have a comic relief story within these 6 stories, but it's still like, there were times when it would cut back to that one, and I'm like, I'm into it as like a caper plot thing that's like lighthearted, but it's like, it's kind of throwing me off from like the rest of the stories, which are basically super serious. Not that I need a super serious hyperlink story that, needs to constantly be depressing me or what have you, but
yeah.
I feel
I recommend the use of the word refreshing, not off-putting. I think it's refreshing.
Okay.
But not only that, too, I mean, that film, what's interesting, too, and it goes back to Alex's point about the nature of storytelling and the way that certain legends are formed, you look at the movie, you know, the Ordeal of Timothy Cavendish, or I forget his name.
Ghastly Ordeal, yeah.
That one. I mean, it's a really serious movie, a serious, hard-hitting drama about this man, and yet it's being told in this really funny way. So that's another thing, you know, of how the way that something actually was ended up being transformed over time and over the telling of it.
It was lighthearted, and then it turns into this great drama.
The Lifetime movie, you know, effect.
Right, yeah. Which goes on to, you know, trigger a life-altering event for this future god. So, it's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Can we have the other one that I kind of put lower on the list of the stories that I enjoyed is the first one, the 1849 set one. I like Jim Sturgis. I think he's fine, but I don't know. That story just didn't really do anything for me.
It's not. I think the conclusion of that story is awesome, and I think you could even have ended the film, as opposed to using the bookend, you could have ended the film on the actual conclusion of that storyline where there's this conversation that's had between a couple of family members. That was an excellent sequence.
Well, that certainly closes out the Hugo Weaving storyline pretty well.
What you see they end in sequence, I believe, right? The movie, doesn't it end? I think
for the most part.
I'm pretty sure each story concludes in sequence, but much like how it begins, everything's connected. But I think what was distracting to me about that part is where I guess where I could take the rest of this to us in this conversation is the makeup. I get what they're doing, and I had no problem with the idea of it. I have no problem at all with the idea of having different actors playing genders and races and roles like that. But when Jim Sturgis' wife in that segment is the Duna Bai character, I believe. And it's that point where it bugged me also with Halle Berry as playing the German Jewish wife of Jim Broadbent's character. Did I need that to be that person? Like, it felt more distracting than just more than.
You know what was cool about that? I think that any viewer who was gonna go see this, you could play a game with yourself, which is what I did. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna guess who each character in makeup is. And for the most part, I think I got like 80% right. It was really cool how they actually showed you which character played which character at the end. But to your point, Aaron, I don't know if it really bothered me as much, because I thought that it was cool just to have the same characters playing different roles in each storyline. And even I was actually pretty excited to learn that some of the characters that I thought weren't in this storyline were actually in the storyline. So I found that to be pretty cool.
Yeah, and again, I like the idea, and I have no problem with it. It's just more of there just seemed to be something awkward to me about having that person play that person in some instances.
I think you definitely have a point. I mean, some of the male to female, characterizations were a bit odd. And one of the things that I thought was really strange, and this kind of goes back a little bit to what Abe was talking about earlier, I felt some of the times when they had clearly actors that were clearly of Asian descent trying to play Caucasian characters, that seemed a bit strange to me. I mean, ultimately I went with it, but I thought it was kind of an odd choice. That we didn't exactly have white folks playing, African American, people. We're not doing blackface here, so it just seemed odd that they were going that route with. Well, easily gotten another actor or actress to play Caucasian character.
I mean, to Aaron's question early on, did you find it strange to have some Asian or some, I guess, Anglo actors playing somewhat Asian characters?
It felt distracting at times just because I'm familiar enough with certain actors' faces where I'm like, this is something. Like, especially like Jim Sturgis, who I'm like, oh, that's just Jim Sturgis in makeup. But it worked. He honestly looked like Spike Spiegel to me after a while, especially when he's in like
Spike Spiegel.
I'm like, when he's in the truck thing and he's like wearing his jumpsuit. I'm like, this is like Cowboy Bebop the movie right now. But I mean, like Abe, you mentioned the interrogator. That one was also like, there's just something off about this, and it's like, again, it's not like the performance doesn't necessarily suffer, and I don't think that. Well, I mean, in the realm of how much the movie suffers. It's minuscule, but it's just something that seems apparent to me, and because of that, I guess it slightly lessens the impact that something's having because of this. Not that it takes away from what the intention is.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's a little odd.
I never saw it that way, actually. I never saw it as it takes away from, I guess, some of the gravity of a moment in a scene in the movie. Cause I kind of just went with it, and that's not because I wasn't paying attention to Halle Berry looking kind of like the Beauty and the Beast character from the television show during the composer sequences. But I think that it was just, again, I found it neat, to put it, I guess, more directly. It's neat that these characters are in all these scenes.
Okay, so here's like another example I can use. Like, remember the end of Harry Potter, the last Harry Potter movie, and you have all the kids playing the adult versions of themselves?
Oh yeah.
It just felt like them playing dress up, and that's what it feels like in some of the cases here, where I get what they're doing, and it's not necessarily an issue that I need to hold something on against, but like it feels like the impact isn't as strong because I feel like it's just people playing dress up as opposed to these are people that just feel naturally cast in these roles.
It's all connected, Aaron.
Thank you.
I think you got a point. I mean, I think they're definitely going to get an Academy Award nomination for Best Makeup. And on some level, it's like, yeah, it's totally deserved. But you're right. There are occasions where it just feels like it's somebody trying to be something that they're not.
And yeah, for sure, I'd love to see. I mean, aside from those ones, I think the makeup for a lot of these people is fantastic. Like, I think, like Tom Hanks at the very end, as much as the old Bones line is funny to me, like him with that gnarly scar and everything, like that's really well done. There are things with some of the ones that are, a lot more like, hey, that is that person actually. Like those ones are like, oh, that's generally surprising. I'm not going to say Hugh Grant surprised me as the character he plays in the final segment.
I kind of
I'm saying I recognized him completely, but I was completely into the fact that he was playing that character, which also makes me want to shout out Hugh Grant because I think he was pretty good in this movie. So
yeah, he was awesome.
And I know he was like last cast, I believe, in the movie too. Like he was like last minute in the movie.
Well, it's great to see him actually stretching himself.
I know he was like playing very much against type in terms of he's basically this.
Besides an English gentleman?
Yes. Besides
an English sort of gentleman.
Awkward sort of English gentleman who's like, oh, I bet you that. Like, it's more of, he's putting on, like, in a lot of them he's putting on the American accent, and he has the gnarly chin beard in the first segment, which is kind of awesome, and then he's playing completely different in the last two segments of like, oh, that's who he is. Like,
right.
I was gonna say, I can't really tell you guys, I can't really make up a case to say, oh, you should just agree with the performances and the makeup. But what I was thinking watching it is that it reminds me of performance art on a stage level, and that you go see these one-off stage performances, and this person plays every role, or you see the kind of things where. A Broadway performance where, the supporting actors have to play 10 different roles throughout the thing, and everyone just has to play roles. And that's what I'm saying. I can't defend it because I think it's partially a financial decision, but also partially, a performance decision. But at the same time, like, as long as you can think and believe and are not putting your mind in the point where you're trying to recognize people and you're just going along with it and getting lost in it and watching everyone and so on, then I feel like it's an accomplishment in that way. And that's sort of my response to that and all the negativity around some of the makeup, and everyone hates Tom Hanks's what's his the
doctor character?
No, let's say they're like the gangster guy from
I like that one a lot. Like if they had more of that guy, I'd be
I know, but I mean, everyone, like, when I first saw it, there were all these responses just claiming, like, Hanks it was like just goofy and he just didn't fit in it. But I'm like, that's a matter of your personal ability to disconnect from Tom Hanks as Tom Hanks.
Very true.
And to follow him into the characters in each and every role. And sometimes the character's so limited, like his like the hotel manager guy. But other characters like that one, you can it's like you don't need to say, oh, this is Tom Hanks. I can say, okay, this is, Dermot, and he's this guy, and he looks like a badass, and he does his thing, and it's fun to watch.
Well, the thing too, I mean, I think it is goofy. I mean, it's clearly goofy, but whether or not you think that's a bad thing, is where the line is. I mean, yeah, it's Tom Hanks. Yeah, it's kind of weird to see him as this, you know, this gangster type of guy. But then what he actually does with it, it's you know, it's one of the best moments of the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
But Tom Hanks' character is actually really interesting too. It's just I think his character, or I guess his spirit, soul, I don't know, takes on the most different characters in the movie, which is interesting because you see him as like a very gentle soul, and then you see him as a very fiendish, and then also very scallywaggy. So it's interesting. I think his was the most, I guess, dynamic.
I think Alex, to your point about respecting it on like a theatrical kind of level, it's I get it, and I see what they want to do, and I see why choices were made. It's more, I guess, which is similar to when I see like adaptations of plays put into movies, and some of them feel more stagey than others. It's the same kind of thing here, where like I'm willing to go along with it. It's just I still know it's happening, and so in the back of my mind, it's still something that's, I guess, playing into how I'm accepting the scene as a whole. I don't know. It's tricky to explain, I guess. It's just like one thing makes more sense to me than something else on a I don't know, contextual level in my mind, where I'm trying to like, I want to be into it, but like there's just something slightly throwing me off.
And something else I think is really interesting too. When you watch the trailer, you get the sense this is like the ultimate Buddhist movie. You know, where we're going like total reincarnation. It's like, we're gonna watch this guy across the decades. But to be honest, I mean, once I started watching the movie, I mean, I really was able to push a lot of that aside. I mean, you guys were talking about, well, the arc of this character and the arc of that character. But I found in my own experience, as I watched the film, I was really just watching each individual story kind of for what it was. Because I had some colleagues that were also in Toronto and saw the film, and they'd kind of cued me off that the stories don't connect quite in the way that you think they would. Like, you're kind of in most films, you'd expect that big, you know, ensemble movie moment where all of a sudden everything kind of comes together. And the fact that you don't get that, I think, is really a terrific choice. But I really just kind of got into the individual stories on that level, which surprised me. I was expecting to kind of, you know, track the evolution of a human soul.
You know, something that's interesting about that is... oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's alright. I was pretty much done.
Yeah. But something that you had brought up that I kind of disagree with about the movie is just, I guess, being beaten over the head with a message. And I think that it wasn't as if it was truly beating me over the head. You know, like every other scene, they're saying that we're all interconnected. Every person that you meet, whatever. But I think that I heard the message enough that I was thinking to myself, you know, it would have been really nice if they left it on a note of, oh, this is the message she's broadcasting. Wow, that's really profound. That's deep. And instead, I think you've heard it actually about 3 or 4 times before that. So it's not that it's a huge takeaway. It's just more of, I think if it's trying to achieve something of trying to tell you about this Buddhist Zen stuff, it really could have been, I guess, handled differently, just in my point of view.
What that's similar to something not an issue, but something I just noticed about the movie is like a movie like this, which is, you know, epic and expansive and has, you know, all these different stories and things going on. For having all that, there isn't a whole lot it's trying to say necessarily. I think there's like some clear themes, like you know, a lot of it revolves around, you know, the system's morally corrupt in some ways, and someone needs to rise up against it, kind of.
Wait, the Wachowskis have never done that
Yeah,
before.
exactly.
That's totally new.
Yeah, and it's something, that was what I was going to say next. And it's like, it's not something that the Wachowskis haven't explored before in their past films.
Right.
In all of them, actually. But then again, that's a pretty universal theme in a lot of ways. But, yeah, I mean, I'm coming away more with the reason what I want to say is the reason I'm still thinking of the movie is based on just how these stories connect to themselves and not necessarily why they connect to themselves.
I think too, I mean, you're looking at the movie and oh crap, I totally lost where I was going with that. Shoot.
Happens to the best of us.
Well, Adam, okay, well, while you're thinking of it, to your point of maybe not if the movie's not necessarily connecting in ways that people were expecting it to, I guess it would have been nice to see a Magnolia scene where they all sing the same song at the same time together.
That's true. That's true. I
That's too much,
figured out
though.
what I was going for, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I can understand a little bit of what Abe is pointing out. I mean, some of the message of the movie is very much, if you will, a hippie ideal about peace, love, and brotherhood. And so I mean, the themes aren't that terribly complicated or complex. It's not, we're not looking at a film that's trying to track, how does a good person do bad things or something of that nature that you can really get into a lot of meat on a philosophical level. So I mean, the ideals aren't that complicated, but it's really in the construction of the story that I think that the film's strengths really come out. But I think what makes this film really sets this film apart isn't that it's trying to change the world with the themes that it's covering, but that it's maybe trying to shoot some holes in the way that contemporary audiences look at narrative structure through the way that the story is being told. Just 'cause that really bugs me a lot when I know that a lot of people, and indeed some of the people at the screening that I attended, a lot of people have issues with the movie because of the way it tells the story, because it dares to be different. And that really bothers me that people would try to make a case that the film is defective or something's not right with the film because it tries to do something that actually challenges you a little bit, and you have to do a little bit of work to stay with the movie. I think that's a positive thing. And so, I'm already kind of bristling against some of the criticisms I know some people have leveled, and I hope that regardless of the film's success, the filmmakers will not be dissuaded from trying to go out there with studio money or a lot of independent money financing and trying to make a big statement.
I want to wrap the review up. So does anyone have any? Adam's gone. Does anyone have any last things to say about Cloud Atlas?
Definitely go see it and think about it.
Give it a chance, yeah. Like, just try to get into the stories and enjoy it, and make what you will of it on your own. But I think it's as we've covered in depth already, that it's the kind of experience that you can find little pieces of and enjoy moments of, and just connect with yourself if you want, or just enjoy as a big ambitious cinematic accomplishment, so to say.
Cool. All right. So
and also, don't be put off by the time, because I think it flows pretty.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to get the rating gun. So each week on Out Now with Aaron and Abe, we try to rate movies based on when you should go and see them, and we have a scale that goes from IMAX to theater, dollar theater, Netflix, HBO, TV, or just kind of forget about it. Alex, on that scale, where would you put Cloud Atlas?
Well, I'd put it at the very, very top, but that sounds like it's IMAX, but I don't
that is
really
IMAX.
support IMAX right now, but in terms of your rating scale, IMAX. But
Yeah, it's the more the rating scale as opposed to
yeah.
Adam?
I'm leaning IMAX-ish, which is rare for me, just because I try to save that for something that just is completely just transcendent. So I'll go with theater with a nod in the IMAX direction.
Okay. Abe?
I'd say solid theater. I don't know if I was completely super blown away, but yeah, I am. Yeah, definitely theater.
I'd say definitely theater as well, and I can't emphasize that. We haven't talked much about the score, but the score is pretty fantastic in this movie, and the sound design in general. We focus so much on the, everything being connected, stories and actors and whatnot, but the production values of this movie, for being, an independent movie where they have to work within the realms, clearly the Wachowskis have expanded upon, and Tom Tykwer have expanded upon Robert Rodriguez's 10-minute film schools, because they have made the best with what they had. It works well.